Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my Mario Bava marathon. And this is not a film I own. This is one that I was actually asked about by a good subscriber and friend of mine, Jammerall81. He asked if I was going to do this film, and I said, well, I don't have it. I've never seen it. But if I ever came across it, I would definitely see it. And he told me it was on YouTube. So I got quite excited for that, and I checked it out, and it was actually Bava's last film, I believe 1977, and that is Shock, which stars Daria Nicolodi and John Steiner. And Daria Nicolodi is known for, she's done a number of films with Dario Argento. I know she was in Bird with Crystal Plumage, Deep Red, Tenebrae. I believe she was in Phenomena. She was not in Bird with the Crystal Plumage. She was in Deep Red, Inferno, Tenebrae, Phenomena, and Opera. Okay. And then she would go on to be in A Mother of Tears, which I have not seen. That's another Argento film. She was in the Giallo film Delirium, which I've never seen. I know she's been in a lot of Giallos as well. A lot of comedies. But anyway. So yeah, it came out in 1977, and this was his last theatrical film. He died of a heart attack 3 years later in 1980. He did have some partial credit on Argento's Inferno, because I guess Argento fell ill during the production, and Bava came in and shot some stuff. But as far as, full credit, a full directorial credit, this was his final film. It was produced by Turi Vasile, screenplay by 4 people, one of which was Lamberto Bava. Also, Dardano Sacchetti, Alessandro Parenzo, and Francesco Barbieri. Music was by I. Libra, and I thought the music was very interesting in this. It had sort of a, like, if you take John Carpenter and Goblin and put them together. Distributed by Titanus Films. And this sort of had the reverse release of Lucio Fulci's Zombie, because in Italy it was released as Zombie 2, the unofficial sequel to Dawn of the Dead. And over here, it was released as Beyond the Door 2, the unofficial sequel to Beyond the Door, from 1974, which is a film that I've never seen. That kid actually looks kind of familiar. I wonder if it's the same kid. I doubt it. David Collin Jr. played Marco. Okay, yeah. So it's the same kid from Beyond the Door. But anyway, so Daria Nicolodi plays this woman named Dora Baldini. She has a 7-year-old son named Marco, and she's married to this commercial pilot named Bruno Baldini. And he's not Marco's father. Marco's father supposedly died when she was pregnant. Was it when she was pregnant? I think that's what it was. Yeah. He was a very abusive heroin addict who supposedly committed suicide when she was pregnant. And they had just moved into the house that she shared with him. And throughout the film, it's sort of a mixture of spooky house film and creepy kid film. Because the kid starts to exhibit some weird behavior, bizarre, hostile behavior. Daria had been, I know her character's name is Dora, but Daria had been, I think while her and his father were together, or shortly after he died, she was committed to a psychiatric hospital, and she was severely traumatized and had extensive electroshock therapy. And now, being in the house is bringing back a lot of those memories, and her sort of a mixture of just her mental illness and paranoia of being in the house, and his behavior and the occurrences that happen, that's all culminating in these events. The son is drawn to the basement. He's always talking to someone that we don't see. Not quite in like Amityville Horror, like Jody told me to do it. It doesn't quite go that route. And I'm sorry, David Collin Jr. might have been the direction he was given. He's not as bad as some other kid performances, even in Italian films. I know Samuel from The Babadook is supposed to be a horrific nightmare. Therefore, that kid actually did a good job. But as far as just bad kid actors who are just annoying, I mean, Bob from House by the Cemetery would probably take the cake, but the kid from Absurd was worse. But this kid was up there. It's more so we see him sort of talking to nothing. And when asked why he's been doing some of the things he's been doing, he says, I promised I wouldn't tell. And a lot of things happen while the stepdad is away on commercial flights. But, like, one night she finds her underwear has been shredded. And I believe that was the night he walked downstairs and saw them having sex on the couch. But even before that, there was like a housewarming party. And when she was kissing her husband, and the kid is like staring at her from across the room, runs off, and when she goes into the next room, he says, I have to kill you, and then runs upstairs. He fakes being ill one day, and she gets really worried, and as she's trying to help him, that's when he springs back to life and says, I fooled you. And she chases him, and the scares are pretty subtle as far as the spooky house, what's in her mind aspect of it. Because while she's chasing after him, she steps on a rake, and it doesn't come up and hit her. She steps on it like sideways, and she trips. And in her mind, it kind of has like this, the wavy effect, but there's like a sort of like a gray hand coming out of the ground, like holding her ankle. It's kind of quick, and the way it's not showing like the hand moving or being very animated, it just sort of like being there. It had a creepy image. It was more effective that way, I think. There is kind of a music sting to create the scare. But it's more so stuff like that that I thought was subtle and well done. Um, the piano plays by itself, but I think something like the strings are messed up, so it's not like a full. It's not playing full notes, but then it does like the bong, and it does. We find out that Carlo, the ex-husband and father, didn't commit suicide. He forcibly injected her with LSD-laced heroin, and she stabbed him to death. Um, and that comes to be because the son asks her, "Why'd you kill Dad?" And it kind of came out of nowhere. And oh yeah, what was the? He's a lot of Italian films sort of has kind of confusing endings. Not that this one was, but I'm just um it all leads up to this one night where um at several points she has nightmares that Carlos come back for her. Some a little bit more erotic than others, but she awakens from one nightmare at the end, and she hears this banging noise coming from the basement, and we find out why Marco's been drawn to the basement throughout the whole film, especially this one brick wall. And she finds Bruno smashing down this brick wall, and we find out that Bruno's body has been hidden within the wall. And that's when he tells her, because she kind of repressed this whole memory, that after she did in fact kill him, she called him for help. He tried to save her from prison, so he hid the body in the wall. And he let his boat go out into the water, because that's sort of how they assume he committed suicide, because they find his boat was adrift. Because she keeps urging him that she wants to move. He's very persistent that they stay. So he's taking it out of the wall to say, if we sell it, someone else could just as easily find it. So he wants to get rid of the body, and then they can proceed with selling the house and moving. And for whatever reason, in some rage, she kills him with a pickaxe and then puts his body in the wall with Bruno's. And then, there's all this sort of poltergeist activity going on because she runs back upstairs and she sees Carlo's body, the apparition of which in the bed. Marco runs up towards her, and I guess sort of like what was the one I watched recently? The Prodigy. He like turns into. Except this movie is way better than that. In fact, actually, it is kind of like The Prodigy. Or The Prodigy is kind of like this in a way because you have a young boy who's somewhat possessed by a bad figure. And then Bruno embraces her, and just in a moment of like desperation and panic, she runs back down to the basement, grabs a box cutter, and slashes her own throat. And then we see Marco in the backyard having a tea party with no one. But we get the idea that the ghost is there. So, I really did enjoy this film. And I was lucky that watching it on YouTube, it was like the old VHS quality, which I really liked. It added to character and charm to the film. I love low VHS quality, especially for older films. I know he's done films in between, but for me, going from one to the other, it is a bit of a return to form for Bava since Rabid Dogs, because Rabid Dogs was such a gritty, realistic movie, and this is more of going back to the supernatural. But it's done in such a low-key way, I guess up until the ending, that it is almost like sort of done realistically. You do get his color palette, his very unique colors, not as intensely as, say, Black Sabbath or Kill Baby Kill. But, with the growing tension with the son's behavior and her paranoia, and with the, I guess, supernatural scare still sort of could it be in her head? Like when she trips over the rake and we just see a hand coming out of the ground, holding her ankle. It's not like a big extravagant scare. It's literally just a hand that doesn't move. It's just holding it. Which then switches to the image of a rake sitting on top of her ankle. It's not like a really big supernatural film, in the sense it's not sort of like over-the-top craziness, or where you really gotta let your suspension of disbelief fully take over. I like the idea. I actually love the idea that it's a sort of traumatized, mentally ill woman that's going through this, because you can then play with the concept of, is it in her head or is it real? And the fact that everything was done sort of subtly, it made it more believable, and I really liked and appreciated that. Daria Nicolodi did a good job. She always does. I've liked her in everything else I've seen her in, which was her number of Argento films, except for Mother of Tears. I never saw that. Uh, I do that. Phenomena was really the only one that was kind of like a villainous character, which was different for her, but I still liked her in that. Of course, I think her best. A lot of people say that this is her best performance. The film didn't do well when it came out. I mean, people did say it's nothing new or special, either in general or from Bava. But they did say there was enough, quote, tricks, as they put it, from Bava to make it interesting and, you know, more worth it, I guess. And some critics have said that this is her best performance, and I may still have to go with Deep Red, but this is up there. Other critics compared it negatively to, like, The Exorcist and The Omen, which I would say it's more like Amityville than The Exorcist, but you know, I would say it's like Amityville mixed with The Omen. I guess Exorcist because the son is kind of possessed. But the scenes when the kid is in like possessed mode, they can make him look creepy. But when he's being a kid, and it might have been the direction the kid was given, but I did think the kid was rather annoying. But, you know, the scenes like at the house party when he's just glaring at her from across the room, they did a good job at making him look kind of sinister. And it does have that Rabid Dogs feel of almost not even feeling like a Bava film. I mean, the story is definitely Bava, but the way it was executed, and I guess even the way it was filmed, you know, you do get some great shots. I can't really remember any on top of my head right now. I just watched it, but you know, it feels different. And maybe it's because, despite the story and what it is, there is a lot of realism and a lot. It does seem to go closer towards what if it is in her mind, which I appreciated and enjoyed. But for the legendary career that Bava has had, all the things that he accomplished, I mean, he was a game changer. He changed the way of gothic horror with certainly Black Sunday. Might still be my favorite Bava film. And Black Sabbath and Kill Baby Kill. Or he made Giallo a thing with Girl Who Knew Too Much, Blood and Black Lace. He helped revolutionize and spawn the whole slasher genre with Bay of Blood or Twitch of the Death Nerve, which is still a giallo, not a slasher, but is one of the most influential films on the whole genre. So, I mean, he was a game-changing director with some great films. And all that said, I think this was a good swan song. You know, this was not a disappointing last film from, you know, a very influential and inspirational filmmaker. It's a film I enjoyed, and I would say, you know, it doesn't have all of his trademarks, but, you know, I thought it was well made. I liked the story. I liked the acting. I thought this was a fair, wrap up to his whole career. I actually really like Shock. It's not one you hear people talk a lot about. I mean, it's not Black Sunday or Black Sabbath or Girl Who Knew Too Much, Kill Baby Kill, Bay of Blood. It's not one of those films, but I think it's as good. It is definitely better than some of the other ones I've seen. But yeah, Shock. I thought this was I really enjoyed it. It was very different, but I thought this was of course that happened, a very worthy and very satisfying, last bow for Bava. So, Shock. Yeah, and Jamroll81, thank you for letting me know that this was on YouTube. I hope you liked this review, and I'm glad you told me about it. So, thank you for watching.